Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. First, happy Independence Day to everybody out there, 4th of July. 58 days away from kickoff, which is a very important number. But what's even more important today is it's a big decision day. Everybody's already talking about it in the chat. Everyone's saying happy Dakorien Moore Day. A lot of people making comments. So what you got, Jerry?
Yeah, it's not that big a day. But look, we'll get to that in a second. 58, number 58. You know, and guys that wore 58 at Texas, not a lot of big name guys, right? But number 58 this year is very important. Lance St. Louis. One bad can cost you a game. No pressure, Lance St. Louis. One bad snap can cost you a game. Hey, looking up the best 58 of all time in college football, you know who won the vote, Bobby? Peter Boulware, Florida State.
I think that's fair.
Elvis Doomerville got a couple of votes for that as well. So not Ray Malaluga, not a lot of big-time fit guys wear 58. All right, now on to the decision day. It is Dakorien Moore decision day. I mean, that's where we're at right now, right? It's going to be Texas or Oregon. I know there's an Ohio State fan in the chat. I'd be shocked. I think it's Texas or Oregon. I think we've talked about it last night. We'll lay this out again. All the things in Texas' favor. Bobby put up a story on TexasFootball.com a few minutes ago before he came on air here. But I think it's Texas or Oregon, and I really think this decision simply comes down to this: where does Dakorien Moore want to be for college? The guys that are as talented as he is, as long as they go handle their business, they can go to just about anywhere, and they're going to be a first-round draft pick. I mean, Deion Sanders said it about Travis Hunter. It was 100% true. That is the level of talent Dakorien Moore has. So it's up to him to go maximize his talent. If he does, if he stays on the track he's on, it's going to take care of itself. He's that talented of a prospect. Now it comes down to, where do you want to be? I think he already, and this is the one thing I want to point out about his decision today, which should be around 8 tonight. I think they're going to have a little family barbecue. He's going to announce his decision on Instagram, I believe. So he'll just be with family, a bunch of family today, this evening. But I think this, though, with his decision, for people that are thinking, and I pointed this out last night, and I want to reiterate this. He made an emotional decision once before when he committed to LSU. He was a big Odell Beckham Jr. fan. That was kind of his player. That's who he identified with. That's who he kind of looked at as his football idol in a way growing up. I think the emotional decision's behind him. He made the official visits. He's really dug into this process, and he is making a real decision. So people that think, well, if it goes Texas way, something could still happen. I don't think so. If the kid commits to Oregon, Texas will just flip him in December. I don't think so. I think what he decides today is where he's going to be. And nothing's ever 100%, but it's in recruiting. I think it's really close, Bobby. This is his decision where he wants to be today.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily a bad thing for Texas. No. I hope that's not a bad thing for Texas in some respects, right? I think that if I'm looking at it, and this is what my article this morning talked about, Jerry. Let's look at the two schools objectively, okay? First of all, I want to say this. Dakorien Moore is a special prospect. And we can watch his film, and you can see it in basically 3 plays. He's fast. He runs away from people. He's got size. He goes up and catches the ball with his hands. He's not a body catcher. He averaged 21.5 yards a catch last year. Okay? You don't do that with 69 receptions. That's a freaky number. It just is. Okay? But here's my take on it. He's looking at Texas, which has Steve Sarkisian, an offensive-minded coach, has Arch Manning waiting in the wings. That Quinn Ewers probably gone, so we're talking about future quarterbacks. He's got Arch Manning versus a guy that Texas passed on, Austin Novosad, out of Dripping Springs. That's the heir apparent at Oregon, or Dante Moore, because Dylan Gabriel's gone next year. Okay. So who wins that battle in your opinion? Arch Manning. Okay. Let's talk about head coaches. Dan Lanning is a defensive coach, right? All right. Steve Sarkisian, offensive coach. Let's go down next to this next piece, which I think is important. Oregon, their offense coordinator is a guy named Will Stein, terrific young coach. Used to be at Texas as a graduate assistant. Was at Lake Travis, then UTSA, et cetera. Terrific young coach. What's the likelihood he's even in Eugene this time next year as the offensive coordinator? Very little. And I mean that with all due respect to him, because I think he's going to get a head coaching job elsewhere this offseason. He almost got a major job this past year, Jerry.
Right. Yeah. If Traylor goes to Baylor, Will Stein goes to UTSA.
At least, if not a bigger job than that even. Good coach is my point. So this is not their mistake. It's they're a victim of their own success there. Compare that to what Steve Sarkisian would be as your offense coordinator. Then the guy that's key recruiting him, in my opinion, is Rashad Samples, who, he's had 4 different jobs in 4 years. So where's he going to be in year 5 or year 6 if you're there? I think that if you look at it from a analytical standpoint, the other team that I think Texas should be fighting with in this respect is actually Ohio State. They have the proven production at wide receiver. They have the offensive head coach, right? The problem with Ohio State, and I wrote this, is Texas is better situated at the quarterback right now. That doesn't mean Ohio State has 2 very young guys, a year younger than Arch, that are pretty good. And then furthermore, I mean, this is a make it or break it year in Columbus for Ryan Day. Steve Sarkisian does not have that, although every year is make it or break it in Texas in some respect, just like it is at Ohio State. But my point being is that if you look at it just logically, it makes no sense for a Dakorien Moore to go play for a defensive head coach whose offensive coordinator might be gone in 3 months at the end of the season. It just doesn't. And whose key recruiter, frankly, has been, like I said, at 4 different places in 4 years. We will see what that matters today at 8 o'clock, and whether that's not been put into conversation or play. A lot of things could go differently. To your point, Jerry, also about the idea that, oh, well, he can make his decision now. It's really December when it matters. A lot of guys are like that. I'm going to say this. A lot of guys are like that. Right. Your point about this being his second decision comes into play. Yeah. Because I think he got the rash decision out of the way.
Yeah.
He's a little further ahead than these other guys. And I would also add this. He's also been highly recruited for that long, too. This isn't new to him. Some guys are just now I'll use the name Josiah Sharman. Okay. His stock just elevated in the last 6 months to where he's this uber highly recruited guy. All right. And that's the defensive tackle that committed to Oregon. Yeah. Dakorien Moore's been doing this for a year and a half. He's ahead of that game. And so I'm not saying it's impossible if he commits one place and ends up somewhere else. I never want to say that because there's all kinds of things that can happen, some of which I just lined out, which include job changes. But a couple things, Jerry. Duncanville and Reggie Samples, the head coach there, does not like kids taking visits during the middle of the school year.
Correct.
Okay. They're going to be playing, and you pointed this out to me last night, they're going to play 15 or 16 games well into mid-December. Most likely, they're the favorite to win it all.
Yes.
And again, and so when does that leave time for actually changing of minds when signing day now is the first week of December and he's a midterm graduate?
Yeah.
The skinniness of the deal there, the margin.
And Bobby, I want to add this, not to cut you off, but I want to add this. He originally was going to go to the OT7 Nationals June 7th through 9th and not make an official visit to LSU. The reason that changed is the people around Dakorien said, let's get through this process and it's done. Let's get through this process. It's done. It's 7-on-7, not that important in the grand scheme of things. Making these June visits and getting this behind you and making a decision is what's most important. And I'll add this. Somebody asked on the chat, why move up the decision? Well, I've been saying it was going to be a July decision. Did we know the date? We did not know the date, but I was told it was going to end up being a July decision, not August decision. So I think that's key, is the way they've attacked this process. This is a extremely stressful and tiring process for a family that goes through this. That's a lot of travel when you go to Ohio State back home, Austin back home, Baton Rouge back home, Oregon, not easy to get to, back home in a 4-week period. That's a lot. So people, when families go through this, they're like, all right, we've done this. We're going to take this month. Let's get to this decision. Let's get through this and be done with this process so you can enjoy your senior year and we can enjoy watching you your senior year. Get this behind us and let's move on. And I think that's exactly what's happened. I think the keys there too, Bobby, are it's obvious everybody in the family, grandmother's in Austin, around Rock area. Mom grew up in Austin. So many family members win that photo on the Texas visit. It's pretty obvious where everybody in his family wants him to go. But the key with recruiting has always been you don't pressure kids into that decision. You give them time and space to come to their own conclusion. Because if you force a kid into a decision, then a lot of times that's when the minds will change later on. Or when you get to that school, you don't like it as much as you thought, and you're like, I shouldn't have listened to y'all, right? So I think the family's done a very good job of giving him his space, letting him make his own decision, giving him that time to digest everything he's seen and come to his own decision without feeling like he has to make a decision because of where his family wants him to be. But make no mistake, you know where they want him to be. But I think that's just been key with this as well. I think they've handled it the right way.
I just feel like the idea that this is a big, recruitment and it's coming to pass is, is absolute. And so I don't think that I don't begrudge people who are saying, well, we could get back in on them. We could do this. We could do that. They're right. You could. But wouldn't you rather be, in the front seat as opposed to trying to knock on the glass door for the back seat and say, hey, let me in? There's a big difference, right, buddy. A big difference.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
Somebody asked, Odin Horns has a good one. More important, DK Moore or Colin Simmons? Is always the next guy that's more important. So DK Moore today.
I agree. Hey, that is a great point. There'll be another guy next year, and the guy after that, and the guy after that. I do wonder this a little bit. The importance of high school recruiting on the whole now has changed with the portal. It doesn't mean it's not as fun to follow, etc. But look, Isaiah Bond's a first-round draft pick, apparently, according to ESPN. Number 25 overall. They got Adonai Mitchell in the portal, second-round pick. There are guys that are going to be out there. My take on it is it's important for Texas because I think the young man's a fantastic football player, like not just good but fantastic. I wrote it today, and I believe it is that he's the kind of guy that helps you get to national championships, and then when he's there, he does something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do believe that he's a special player.
Absolutely. I put him in the same category with Derek Johnson and those level guys that Texas has recruited. That's how important, that's how talented I think he is, how big it is. I mean, here's the other thing with him that's interesting is, so Colin Simmons was always going to the SEC. If Texas is not headed to the SEC, Colin Simmons wouldn't be at Texas no matter what. So he was always going to the SEC. Caden Durham LSU, SEC. Keelan Russell just flips from SMU to Alabama, SEC. So Dakorien Moore is either going to fall in line with his guys or he's going to set some trailblazing path. These guys have Dakorien's been similar to those guys throughout this process. The SEC schools have always had an advantage. We'll see what he announces at 8.
All right, guys. Lots of comments, lots of questions regarding Dakorien Moore. We'll get to those here in just a moment. But first, Bobby, can you tell folks out there about Rick Vavro and Austin Underground?
Yeah, absolutely. Since 2004, Rick and his team at Austin Underground have specialized in difficult underground commercial installations. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider just too risky. Rick and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. Thanks, Rick and his team, for their ongoing sponsorship of On Texas Football.
All right. We have
hey, Blake,
yeah.
I want to answer one. By the way, Zion Williams committed to LSU. He had actually called Texas and Texas A&M and told them last night he was headed to LSU. That's not a surprise. Okay, a couple of things I want to hit on here. Michael Trujillo, and somebody else had mentioned this too. I know we're talking about Moore, but how does Texas stand with French and Lockett? I think Texas is in a really good spot for French. I think they're in the ballpark on Lockett. We'll see what happens. He announces August 7th. And then Jamie French is August 30th. So it'll be a clear picture for those guys on Dakorien Moore after today, obviously. So I think Texas is in a pretty good spot, really good spot for Jamie French. I think they're in the ball game there with Khalid Lockett had that decision. There was something else I wanted to pull up. Hold on. Oh, King Me. This is a good one. How would you rate the talents of Evan Stewart, Micah Hudson, and DK Moore on a list of 1 to 3? So I was on record last year saying Dakorien Moore is the best receiver in Texas, and it wasn't even close. Nothing's changed with my opinion on that. I think Dakorien Moore by far was the best receiver prospect in the state. His sophomore year, junior year, going to be senior year. So take all that into consideration. I think Dakorien Moore is 1, and I think Evan Stewart could be a first rounder if he'll go maximize his talent. I think Dakorien's a bigger guy, more physical guy. I think he's more of a complete wide receiver than Evan Stewart. I think Evan Stewart would be 2, and I think Micah Hudson would be 3 on that list. And I think it's Dakorien by a wide margin at 1.
By the way, all 3 really good players.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, you know, it's like, do you like Miss Texas, Miss Hawaii, Miss Louisiana? I mean, it's like a beauty contest, right?
Yeah.
All 3 really, really good players. I agree with Jerry, though. I also think that what Moore has is Moore is a top 5 pick potential.
Yeah.
In my opinion. He's not like Stewart is more, in my opinion, like Xavier Worthy. Very speed oriented, etc. Maybe a little bit more contested ball catcher than Xavier Worthy, but not as quick as Xavier. Micah Hudson is more of a slot receiver. You're not going to go a slot receiver is not going to go in the top 5 in the NFL draft. Dakorien Moore has that capacity, in my opinion.
DK Moore, Luther Burden, DK Moore on upside, but Luther Burden's damn good.
Yeah, I think Luther Burden's a top 10 pick. You know, y'all are splitting hairs a little bit here, but or we're trying to. But I think that's part of it. I do want to say this. Somebody just said stopping at Ruska's, and I am, yes, jealous. That is one of my favorite places to stop at when I'm on the road. The kolaches there are out of this world. I really appreciate it. Hey, Blake and Jerry, we had some other things that we wanted to talk about this morning. A couple of them that I thought were interesting. Breaking down the U.S. Olympic team. You know, we talk about other sports here, Blake and Jerry, and how they all bleed into what University of Texas represents overall. Blake, you have a graphic ready for us that I think is going to be interesting for folks who have not seen it. Could you go ahead and put that up?
Yeah, so actually I have two, Bobby. I want to explain the first one here a little more in depth because it's kind of misleading. I did some more research into this. As you can see, breaking down the 2024 U.S. Olympic team by NCAA ties. This is actually just for swimming. So this is just for swimming. Bob Bowman, the new swimming coach there at Texas, tweeted this out. Texas, California, Indiana, and Virginia lead the way with 6. And then, excuse me, Florida with 5, Stanford with 4, so on and so forth. But this is just for swimming. But, Bobby, only 13 schools have 10 or more athletes heading to the Olympics. Texas, one of those schools, as you can see the other 12 there, California, Florida, Harvard, Kentucky, Notre Dame, Penn State, Princeton, USC, Stanford, UCLA, Virginia, and Wisconsin make up the other 12. But quite the accomplishment.
Yeah, I love it. That's what you want to see, right? If you're talking about an all sports in the impact it can have, not only carrying the Longhorn torch in Austin and around the state of Texas, but around the country and now worldwide. I love to hear about stuff like that. I just think it reinforces a little bit about what Texas is trying to be on a national level and even internationally.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff for sure, guys.
All right. I'm going to bring up Zane Petty's question real quick. Do you think Sark pushed DK to move his date up? I do not. I think Dakorien Moore just made a decision on where he wants to be. I don't think anybody pushed him on any decision. I think look, as of last night, he hadn't told the colleges where he's going. As of last night at 10, any of them. He said he's going to do that today. So I don't think so. I don't think any college pushed him up, pushed him to make. You don't do that. You don't push kids like this. That always backfires on you. I think Dakorien went through his process. I think his family is ready to get it behind him, so they can enjoy his senior season. And I think that's why they attacked the process like they did this time. Again, that canceling the OT7 and going to LSU, make sure you know where you're going this time. I think he went through the process. I think they've taken some time, and I think he's made his decision.
Well, speaking of, guys, we have a couple of super chats here regarding Dakorien. And goodness, sorry. I want to knock those out. Jeff Carey. Thank you, Jeff. He says, guys, fantastic work. What type of NIL package would be offered to Moore?
Without knowing the specific numbers for sure, he's going to be the highest paid wide receiver in this class, is my guess.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. So what does the top of that food chain look like? I don't know the number. I think that when I talked to Blake Lawrence, the head of Open Doors, which is Open Doors is the company a lot of you guys may or may not know that actually oversees and manages some of the NIL deals that players receive. He said wide receiver was one of the premium positions along with quarterback, along with defensive tackle. So we'll see where that ends up. But it is definitely in the mid six. It would definitely be in the mid to six figures on an annual basis. So on an annual basis. So over a 3-year period, you're talking about, 1.5 to 2+.
And then our other super chat, fellas, comes from Juan Garza. Thank you, Juan. He says, Jerry, without telling us, do you know where Moore is going? Do you know in your gut or no?
You're looking at your gut?
Yeah, I think so.
You think you do know?
Yeah, I think I do know.
Okay.
There you go.
Somebody will have to ask my gut.
All right,
I'm
guys.
speaking for my gut.
We got a couple of other Dakorien Moore questions, then we'll jump over to a different topic. Jawan wants to know, is Dakorien Moore a day one starter at Texas with all the talent that we have?
He's a midterm graduate, so very well could be. I think, look, if he picks Texas, Isaiah Bond goes to the NFL. Matthew Golden will try to go to the NFL. Silas Bolden is out of eligibility. It's a pretty good chance. Now, I'll say this about Dakorien Moore. I don't think his decision's based on that at all. I think he's of the opinion, because he's confident in his own abilities, that if I go in and do my job, I'm going to have a chance to start anywhere I go.
And we'll do one more here. Let's see. We'll talk about Duncanville since he's from Duncanville. Kim says, does Texas get 1.5 over under 1.5 prospects from Duncanville in 2026?
Probably say under right now, but so much can.
Who would they want, Jerry? The defensive end,
KJ Ford. Yeah, KJ Ford. Right now, we'll see if anybody else pops up that gets in that territory.
There you go. Okay, well, since we're on the wide receiver talk, we're going to take this other one from Kim, guys. He says, good morning from Rockford, Illinois. What do you think the possible stats for Wingo and Cook are this season?
It's a very interesting question.
I think Cook has 50+ catches. That's my number for him. I think that he and Isaiah Bond probably going to be the guys that make a lot of catches this year. Silas Bolden will be in that category. Matthew Golden will be too. Wingo, I'm thinking 20 to 25 catches, maybe 30. And a lot of that depends on how the rotation plays out. And this also obviously doesn't take into account any possible injuries. But I actually think I talked to somebody that thinks Jonte Cook will likely lead the team in receptions this year. Consider that.
And then
I'm going with 40-45 for Jonte Cook. And I'm going with very close to that for Ryan Wingo. I think Cook early. I think Wingo late in the season.
And our next question, fellas, is going to come from, I just lost it here. My apologies. Oh my goodness. Where did it go? Right here from Burnt Orange Horn. We've had a lot of questions about Michael Terry lately, but not so much today. So what's the latest with Michael Terry?
Well, a lot is so much to pit with him. It's such an interesting dynamic in that recruitment because, people are telling him running back. Nebraska's telling him wide receiver. Texas and Texas A&M recruiting him as an athlete, period. There's also a chance he doesn't announce anything for a while. Now, those later timelines are always subject to change. I think he'll have a decision way before maybe he announces publicly. So we'll see. I think Texas is right there for Michael Terry. It's all going to come down to where do you really want to play, what position, and who do you think is going to give you the opportunity to do that? I think that's going to be big for him. I mean, Oregon obviously said running back. That's an attempt to get him and make it different than anybody else, what anybody else's message is. Nebraska's saying catch passes from Dylan Wright at wide receiver. I don't think either one of those are really what's going to happen with his future. I think Texas and Texas A&M are saying athlete. We'll figure it out once you get here. Tight end, outside rush linebacker, most likely. I think that's the reality for Michael Terry. Not that a kid can't go out and do something you don't think he can, but I think Texas they're right there with that recruitment so much. To me, what'll be interesting is when does he actually make a decision versus when is he actually going to announce? Because I think he may commit privately, but not announce until later. Could that change? Absolutely could change.
And then a follow-up question on Terry from Antoine. Is Michael Terry a faster little Jordan Humphrey?
No, I think Michael Terry's Amari Niblack if he does it right. Bobby?
He's a much little Jordan Humphrey is an anomaly a little bit. And what I mean by that, Jerry, you were around. Charlie Strong went and saw little Jordan Humphrey play in high school. And little Jordan Humphrey, at how big he was playing running back.
Yeah.
He came back after that and said, I don't know what the hell he is, but he's something and we'll figure it out. Right? He didn't know whether he was a receiver, tight end, linebacker. He didn't know. LJ Humphrey is a really, really good athlete. There are some similarities to that with Michael Terry. Michael Terry, however, is more prototypical in that regard. He's not as long and lean as LJ Humphrey, if that makes sense. LJ Humphrey would have real problem adding true weight. Does that make sense? Whereas Michael Humphrey will not have that problem. And yes, Michael Terry is also much faster than LJ Humphrey. LJ Humphrey would have longer catch radius. I would put that out there, or a larger catch radius.
Yeah, to Bobby's point, I mean, little Jordan Humphrey's what, 6'4", 6'5", 220-ish these days. He's 195 pounds coming out of high school. Michael Terry is 6'2.5", 218, 220 right now, plays multiple sports. He is going to be it's going to be hard for him to not weigh 235, 240 as a college football player. It's going to be really hard for him to keep that type of weight off. So I really just believe that, you know, kids got to play. Kids got to be invested where they want the position they want to play. First of all, it goes back to the old Cedric Cormier recruitment out of North Shore, when a lot of schools recruiting him at corner, but he just wanted to play offense. He wanted to play wide receivers and offensive players, so he went to Colorado. Michael Terry's got to really decide what he wants to be. And right now he wants to be an offensive player. So if he's an offensive player in the position you have the best chance to maximize your talent, it's probably going to be in Amari Niblack as a tight end long term for me.
All right, guys, plenty of time to get your questions in on this Independence Day episode of Coffee and Football, so please do so. But before we get to some more questions, Jerry, tell folks out there how they can be well groomed this holiday with Manscaped.
Look, I got to be honest, it's Dakorien Moore decision day. Somebody's going to get the 5.0 today, and we'll see where that is. We'll see who it's going to be. Is it going to be Lanning? Is it going to be Texas? Somebody's going to get the 5.0 today. But let's talk about that tomorrow or tonight. Sizzle alert. This summer, let the only thing smoking at the barbecue be the grill, not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the pool like Blake later, make sure your meat looks neat with the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra. The meat's got to look neat, guys. Find your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code ONTEXAS, all caps, for 20% off plus free shipping. Let's make this summer sizzle for all the right reasons. And look, this is very important. Very, very important. The Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant after the meat looks neat is very important. For those sunny beach days and barbecue parties, don't leave home without the Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant. Let the sun see you shine, not sweat. Manscaped, 20% off on Texas, all caps. Make sure your meat looks neat.
There you go. I will be cannonballing into the pool here in just a little bit.
I know. Hey, but if it's a plastic overground pool, don't make it a bad highlight on the ridiculousness show.
I love those.
Oh, man. All right, guys. Well, as I said, plenty of time to get your questions in. We're going to jump right back into those questions here. And we're getting some team questions, some recruiting questions. But let's start with this super chat from Slick Rick. He says, and thank you, Slick. He says, Texas just needs to win to get the recruits they want. If Texas keeps winning, which defensive tackle recruit do you think could be a likely flip come December? Well, that's $1 million question.
Yeah,
And literally $1 million.
Yes. Yeah. I want to say this, which is funny about these guys, that's this position. Multiple guys who've committed elsewhere are already saying, don't stop calling me. To multiple colleges, not just Texas.
Yep. People, I do think that there's a sense that there's not a finality to some of these recruitments, but there are a couple that I think are final.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Kevin Wynn is going to stop. I don't think he's going to switch away from Florida State. I don't think Myron Charles is out of Florida either. But and you never know. Josiah Sharma is one of those that I think Texas is going to stay on. I don't think that Texas may still try to get Zion Williams in. A lot of people are mentioning that he announced for LSU this morning. He did indeed do that, the defensive tackle out of Lufkin. As Jerry said, one of the things that I found interesting, he called other schools that recruited him last night and told them he was going to LSU. That's the way you do it. Whether you're going to Texas or somewhere else, you do it that way, young man. So my hat's off to you on that. But my point here is, I think that Texas is probably going to go after quite a few and try to flip them and see which ones are takers. I don't necessarily think that they're going to find one. That's my take on it. Brandon Brown, as we've mentioned before, is expected to make a decision tomorrow, a final one. Texas was still fighting as of last night. Jerry checked on that, and he and I talked. Texas still fighting on that one. LSU and Oklahoma. The Sooners aren't going away on that either. They have a very dogged approach at defensive line with Todd Bates, and we'll see exactly what happens. But I'm telling you right now, that is a big deal, and that recruitment comes down to tomorrow between Texas, LSU, and Oklahoma.
All right. And then we got a super chat here from Juan Garza. Thank you again, Juan. You put one in earlier, so thanks for doing that. Once again, he says, hearing more buzz on Oregon this morning based on mods from Oregon. Sheesh. We'll see what happens.
They're excited. They
11 hours away.
I'm not going to be surprised if it's Oregon. I'm not going to be surprised if it's Texas. I'll be surprised if it's anybody else.
Agree.
And then, Bobby, I know we've talked about this throughout the week, but we've had a few people asking, including Scott here. He says, any update on the Bam Bam McMichael band funding? For those that may have missed it, I'm going to bring it up here, put the link in the chat, but can you explain it one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. We're trying to get the band to be able to go to the Hall of Fame parade on August 3rd. It's the Freer High School Band. It's a small rural community. For those unaware, bands have to pay their own way, buy their own food, get up there in a bus, all that stuff. All in it costs them about $20,000. When we started this on Monday, they were at $1,000. They're now up to almost $8,000. Really appreciate everyone's help. I talked to or texted with one of the school district members, or I don't know if it's a representative or what have you. What do you call it? School board. Yeah, I think school board member yesterday. They're very, very appreciative. They're starting their outreach other places as well. It's going to be we're going to make this happen and celebrate Steve McMichael, the former Texas All-American, Chicago Bear, and his induction to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. For those unaware, McMichael for the last 4 or 5 years has been suffering debilitatingly from ALS. And we do believe that's from his playing days. So we want to try to send him off to Canton the right way. And that includes the Freer High School Band. Like you said, Blake will put the link in the chat. $5, anything helps, dude. We're just trying to get them on a bus, get them fed, and get them back home. That's all.
There you go. Good stuff for sure, guys. So appreciate, as Bobby said, everybody that's donated to that so far. And we appreciate the questions that keep coming in. So let's get to more of those. R. McDonald 86. Is Silas Bolden the favorite to be punt returner, or is it Matthew Golden? Golden or Bolden, guys?
Yeah, Silas Bolden, punt return. Matthew Golden's a kickoff returner. I think they're different return men. I think Silas Bolden could return a couple of kickoffs, but Matthew Golden is the kickoff returner. That's his strength. Silas Bolden, punt returner. That's his strength. Silas had a punt return for a touchdown last year. Golden had 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns last year. I don't think Matthew Golden will be in the mix at punt return. I think that what you're looking at there is that Silas Bolden, Jonte Cook, Aaron Butler.
I think it's Bolden punt returner, Golden kick returner. I'm interested to see who goes alongside him at kick return, Jerry. Who do you think kick returns with Golden?
I hope it's not Jaden Blue.
I bet it is.
Yeah.
I bet it is. Why do you hope not? Just because of physicality? You don't want him to get injured?
Yeah.
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 Because I think he's got the jets to take it the distance, to your point.
Yeah.
But I understand about not getting beat up.
Yeah. One hit to the knee when you're running that fast is bad news.
Yeah.
And then Blake Jester wants to know, do you think we could possibly see a DeAndre Moore breakout season this year?
I do. I think I could see 25, 30 catches for 400 yards from Dakorien Moore this year. I think he's a very good player. I think the Quinn Ewers knows where he's going to be. There is a serious trust there with Quinn Ewers and Dakorien Moore, where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there.
All right, guys.
I'm a big fan. I want to add this.
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
I'm a big fan of guys like DeAndre Moore. DeAndre Moore is very talented. Okay, so don't give me this. But he is not just talented. He is an extremely hard worker, is what I'm told. And those guys may not come out lighting the world on fire in college, but they have a way to keep improving over their time in college and finding a way onto the field. This is not DeAndre Moore would have played as a true freshman at Texas 3 years ago, by the way. Just to give you a sense of how talented he is. I think he's more talented as a receiver, for example, than Jordan Whittington. I just want to put that out there. Like, he's more talented as a receiver than Jordan Whittington.
So by the way, sorry I said Dakorien Moore. I meant DeAndre Moore.
Yeah, no, I know. What I would add to that, though, with DeAndre is he's one of those kind of wily guys that I think will work his way into something.
Yep.
That's just who he is. They've lined him up all over the place. He was one of the first guys Sark gave multiple reps to at multiple positions. Whereas Ryan Niblett literally is working out of the slot still almost primarily. Moore's lined up just about every position. So there's a little something to him in his brain that makes him a little different. And I to Jerry's point there, that's not a guy I would ever count out in life. Not on a football field.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a super chat here from Jack. Thank you, Jack. He says, happy 4th to our Longhorn family. Great day to be a Longhorn. Great day to be an American.
Huge. I love July 4th, man. My wife makes the blueberry cake with the blueberries are the stars, right? And the strawberries are the lines on the flag. I love it. I'm going to dive in around 2:00 this afternoon with some fajitas. That's my plan for today, by the way.
Okay, and let's see here. We got a question here from David Keith Williams. He says, if Nick Townsend commits to Texas, which I really hope happens, I think it might impact Michael Terry. Texas will have 2 definite tight ends in the class. Where does Terry actually fit? I'm not sure if he does. Jerry, I know you kind of touched on this just a little bit ago, but how would Townsend shake that up?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And Texas hopes they have to deal with that. Let's say that, because Nick Townsend announces July 8th. We continue to hear positive things there with Texas. Obviously, Texas A&M, USC making it a fight. I'm not sure Alabama where they're really at with that, especially after Caleb Edwards committed. But I think that's a great question. Obviously, I think Nick Townsend, Bobby's saying, we think he's an elite prospect, probably a top 10 prospect in the state, even if he's not ranked there. Just a tremendous prospect. So would that affect Michael Terry? It could actually, in one way, help you with Michael Terry, because it all depends on what Michael Terry's thinking right now and what he wants to play and how open he is to all positions if he were to go to a Texas as an athlete. Now, that's really the key. Look, if Michael Terry wants to play running back, he's not going to Texas. If he decides he wants to be a running back, he's not going to Texas. If he decides I want to be a wide receiver and that's it, he's not going to Texas. He's going to have to be open-minded to end up at a Texas or Texas A&M.
All right, guys. And we got a question here from Isaiah Stewart. And he says, outside of Colin Simmons, which freshman are you most excited for to grow/develop? Personally, he's excited for Xavier Filsaime. I
think that's a good pick. I mean, Xavier Filsaime, safety position. You look at how coming in at the spring, he has the athleticism, the physicality, the frame. He's got all that. He wants to be a really, really good football player. I think getting in the spring was huge for him. I'm very excited and interested to see how much more confident he is in the scheme in August. I think the spring's tough because you think sometimes instead of just reacting and playing. And I think that's why it was great to be there in the spring for him to get that out of his system. I think in August, September, you're going to see a guy that's just going to be getting back to reacting and playing and using all of that athleticism and physicality. I think long-term, he's got a chance to be a really good player.
I'm going to go with the ones other than Colin Simmons. Yeah, I'm interested in Xavier Filsaime. I'm interested in Wardell Mack. Some other guys too. But I wrote down these three. Ryan Wingo is clearly one of those guys that I think, as you see him this year and what he could be 2 years from now, I mean, you're talking about a guy that could be a little bit of a force of nature, if that makes sense. The other two I wrote down briefly, Jerry. Jordan Washington, the tight end. Very interested to see him develop over the next couple of years. And then Alex January at defensive tackle.
Yeah,
I just feel like those guys, based on what I saw in the spring from going to practice and or the spring game, NFL bodies, NFL mindsets, NFL athleticism for their positions. So watching those guys develop, let's see whether they end up, getting picked. Would you agree with me? Those three guys have NFL brains, NFL athleticism,
for sure,
NFL mindset. I think so too.
Yep, no doubt. Market Valdez, that's pretty funny. Hold on, I'll bring this up. But then Ivory Martin's got a good question. The only one who groaned when DK announced he'd be coming today was Jerry, because it meant he had to drive Duckville. That's not happening today. I'm in South Florida, so I'm out on that one. I'm in South Florida today. Now, I am going to go probably see Jamie French on my way back to Texas in a week. Ivory Martin, do you think CJ Baxter will be a 1K rusher, 1,000-yard rusher this season? I think that's a great question, guys. I actually do think he will be, assuming he doesn't have the same Nick type of injuries that kind of just prolonged, and he didn't play healthy last year. If he has a healthier season this year, guys, Bobby, I think Cedric Baxter is going over 1,000. But that doesn't mean Jaden Blue won't have 1,400 combined rushing and receiving. He just may have more receiving in some games than rushing yards. But I do think Cedric Baxter will be a 1,000-yard rusher if he's healthy.
Sark always has a 1,000-yard rusher. Don't forget about that. And so if Cedric Baxter is going to be the one that gets the lion's share of the carries, watch out. He'll get 1,000. I want to go back. A lot of people missed the very opening of this video. And so I want to mention a couple of things. One, Dakorien Moore is expected to announce at around 8 p.m. tonight on his Instagram Live. He is not Mark Valdez asked about the idea, Jerry, of going to Duncanville High School. He's not announcing at his high school.
Family barbecue.
Yeah, family barbecue. So be aware of that. There's not some big production, we don't believe, here involved at this point. So he's going to do that. My take on all of it as it relates to Dakorien Moore right now, guys, just to rehash, is I think it's Texas and Oregon.
Yeah.
And I think it could go either direction. I truly believe that Texas is a better fit for him right now. And if you just sit back and look at it, you have Arch Manning as your quarterback, possibly Trey Owens, compared to Austin Novosad / Dante Moore, who kind of got ushered out of UCLA a little bit at quarter there. For your offensive coach, you have either Steve Sarkisian or Will Stein. Now, Will Stein is a good offensive coach at Oregon. Will Stein is also more likely to be the head coach somewhere else this time next year and never coach Dakorien Moore a single game in college. That's just a fact. Oregon fans will be all up in arms. I said that, but it's not a negative. I mean, Will Stein's a good coach. He's going to be wanted, probably by a Power 5 school. So you're looking at likely inconsistency at offensive coordinator there and turnover. Yeah. And then your key recruiter at this point has been Rashad Samples. And I mentioned this. Rashad Samples had 4 different jobs in 4 years. What consistency you get there. Then you talk about the idea that it's closer to home where all your family can come see you play. I think all the things like that line up for Texas, but this is recruiting. This is recruiting. Don't forget about that. And so that's where the X factor comes in. Oregon is on a run right now. And so that's something to be under consideration as well.
Yeah.
And where I come out on this is we've talked about all the factors that would favor Texas. I think Dakorien Moore's decision today is ultimately, where does he just want to be? And he knows his family wants him to be in Austin because there's so many family members there. This decision, I think, is his immediate family's done a really good job not pressuring him, letting him make his own decision, because that is so important. This decision today comes down to, where does he want to be? Where does he see himself for the next 3 or 4 years? And I'm not one that thinks wherever he commits today, he may flip. I think wherever he commits today is where he'll sign.
Because this is his second go round.
Yeah, unless something wild happens.
Yeah, unless Will Stein takes another job, but Will Stein's not going to take another job before December 4th.
Yeah.
That's the other thing people got to realize. Signing day is early in December this year. Oregon may or may not make it to the Big Ten championship game, right? But it's going to be, the signing day is going to come and go before Will Stein goes and takes another job. So I don't think that will necessarily have an effect. Obviously, I think it's possible that Dan Lanning may go somewhere else at that point because Florida may open. But we'll see what happens.
Yep, see what happens.
We got a couple more super chats, fellas. This one here from Osas the Destroyer. He says, why is Texas not pushing for Jonah Williams? We have seen what it looks like when Sark really wants a player. Jerry?
Yeah, so good question. I think Texas likes Jonah Williams. I'm not sure they've pushed as hard as some other schools have, because there's a lot of layers with that recruitment. Jonah wants to be a safety. Is he a safety long term? Probably not. Pro baseball is a legitimate option here for him. So how invested is he in football? It's harder today in today's day and age to be really good on the football field and really good on the baseball field in college if you want to do both. These are year-round sports. You have NIL as well, so things you have to do outside of football. So there's a lot that goes into this now, and I'm of the belief that, one, he wants to play safety. Does Texas really see him as a safety long term? I'm not sure any colleges do. I think people are telling him what he wants to hear. And then, two, how do you, when you talk to your baseball staff who talks to MLB scouts, where is he at really with football versus baseball? And what's the likelihood at the end of the day, this time next year, he has chosen baseball?
I would add this, Jerry. Texas is recruiting. Blake Gideon's leading that recruitment at safety for Texas. They definitely want him. To add to your point about baseball, CJ Vogel, who follows this, Blake, you do as well. Some people think Jonah Williams is the number one outfielder in the country in his age group.
Very well could be.
You can talk about NIL all you want, but what is the number one outfielder in Major League Baseball draft get? Blake?
It's not. Yeah, you're going pro baseball.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. So there's a little bit of complexifying factors there for him, but I think he's a marvelous prospect. And do I think he's a spin down candidate? Yeah, most likely. But I think he wants a shot at safety first, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, Texas is recruiting him. They're not necessarily getting much traction, though. And that happens.
And speaking of baseball, we have some baseball questions. I'll get to those here in a minute. Let's knock out this other super chat first, though, guys. KD35, I am the best. We thank you. And he says, happy 4th of July, fellas. Outside of Quinn Ewers, who do you think will have the best season for Texas offense and defense? And who will also be the most important player to Texas success?
My offensive player is Cameron Williams at right tackle in pass pro. I think he's going to be really good in the run.
You think he'll have the best season or the most important?
I think he's most important player for Texas offensive success this year, because I have all the confidence in Quinn as a third-year starter. Nye Black and Helm, I think they may be better at tight end than last year. I really do believe that all around. And wide receiver, more talent, more of a rotation. Running backs, year older. Center backs are sophomore. These guys ascend from year 1 to year 2. Jaden Blue, year 2 to year 3, finally getting his opportunity. Trey Wisner, year 2. I really think it comes down to the right side of the offensive line in pass protection. That's Cam Williams and DJ Campbell. So I put Cam Williams as your first-year starter at right tackle, taking over for a guy that got drafted. How he's going to be good in the run game. How is he in pass protection? Because that's going to be key, because DJ Campbell's strength is also in the run game, not pass protection, heading into year 2. Now, I do think he'll be improved. I think he won't be maybe as late off the ball sometimes as he was. I think he's a year older now. There are some times where he's a little slower off the ball. I do think DJ Campbell will be better in that regard this year, but I think Cam Williams holds a lot of cards for this Texas offense this year, because Michigan is going right after those two guys in Ann Arbor. So, can you hold up in pass pro? Kelvin Banks, really good. Left side, good in pass pro. How are you guys on the right side going to be in pass pro week 2? I think Cam Williams' job's big. Bobby, I don't know what else you have defensively. I really think Trey Moore holds the cards for Texas this year. Is he an 8 to 10 sack guy at the University of Texas? If he is, he's going to have 40
and a half at UTSA. Yeah. So my take on it's a little bit different. I think that your star players have to perform like stars for you to maximize. One of the things that I'm big on is those guys are the difference makers. Everybody else has to level up a little bit, and they have to the stars have to bring them up. For me, the most important player is Kelvin Banks. For one of those reasons why is I think he'll get the best of the pass rush folks from the SEC and from Michigan. I mean, they're going to try to Jerry's point, that's a tall order. I do believe that's one that I want to see. So I think Kelvin Banks, even though he plays a position that is generally undervalued, not undervalued, but underregarded. It's not this high. It's a high profile position nowadays, but people don't look at that. They look at where the ball's going, right? So I think he's going to be that one. On defense, I know people say the pass rush. I think it is going to be a little bit of a pass rush by committee, and many of them are capable. So I actually think that the ability of Anthony Hill to be a great player or start showing that he's a well-rounded player as a middle linebacker, he holds a lot of keys to this defense because he is a phenomenal athlete. And again, I'm telling you, I'm a big believer in when your best athletes and best players step up. And so I think that he and Kelvin Banks actually are those two guys for Texas outside of Quinn this year.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but that's how I feel.
Hey, Blake, I want to bring this one up. Hey, don't read too much into me this morning, man. I was out in the sun about 7 hours in South Florida yesterday. Slept about 3 hours. So I would need a B12 shot and an IV this morning to have a ton of energy. Just FYI.
All right, guys. As I said a second ago, I do have some baseball questions I want to hit on real quick. I guess some baseball speed dating, as Jerry Hamilton would put it. And AJJ Sports says, I need some good news. So any baseball updates, Blake? Dakorien Moore may not be the only one announcing something today. We'll say that. Something may pop for Texas that I'm keeping an eye on. We'll see what happens. And it'll be
that'd be a good one. Hey, let's go over also some announcement dates that are key, because obviously Dakorien Moore tonight.
Yeah.
Brandon Brown's tomorrow. I believe that'll be LSU. Oklahoma's in the fight. Texas still trying to fight there. Tennessee would be the upset pick of all time in that one. Then you have on the 6th, Cade Phillips out of Missouri City, Hightower High. Texas, the favorite over LSU as that decision nears, right? We're on commit watch with Nathan Tillman. We'll see if he makes his decision this week or if that bumps back the next week. Jonathan Cunningham, linebacker from North Crowley, texted me last night and said he's bumped his back to July 12th. Nick Townsend, July 8th, Decaney, tight end, top 100 kid in the country, either tight end or D end. He could do whatever he wants. He's a top 100 player in the country. And Tanook Hines will also announce with him on the 8th. Kelshawn Johnson on the 8th. That's an A&M lean over Texas right now, barring a major change. Those are some of the guys coming up. We think some other guys will pop up and announce here before July 10th.
What about Lamont Rogers is the 6th?
No, sorry, Lamont Rogers, July 6th. I believe that's Missouri or Texas. I think he'll go to Missouri if his parents or if his mom's okay with that distance from Mesquite.
Got it.
If not, I think Texas. I think Texas, then Oklahoma. Everybody's in play, but I think he really likes the Missouri offensive line coach.
All right, guys. A couple of other ones real quick I want to hit on. Larry Johnson, Blake, what's up with the transfer portal concerning Aggie players? Are any of them going to follow Schloss to Texas? I don't think so now. I think that the hire that they made, the head coaching hire, changed that completely. So they did that, and it kind of created a Band-Aid on that problem. We'll see how that works out. Odin.
Well, hey, wait a minute, Blake. I've heard they've actually been successful in the portal as well. They got a guy from Texas Tech. Right?
Yeah, they did get Cash. So Cash was actually at Texas, then went to Texas Tech, and now at Texas A&M. So he's completing the trifecta there.
Wow, and he still has 1 year left after that.
Yeah, definitely. And he's a dang good first baseman. Don't get me wrong. So Odin Horns, is CDC going to expand Dish Falk? Any upgrades? We talked about this on the baseball special that CJ and I did the other day. We're hearing by 2026, we may see some natural grass there at Dish Falk. So that's huge in itself. So there's a little bone there. And then there was one other one I thought that I saw, if I can find it. Maybe not. But a lot of people wanting to know, and I'm curious to get y'all's thoughts on this, because this really kind of stemmed from Schloss going to Texas, and then like A&M and Tennessee fans kind of banded together. And now Tennessee fans are after Texas fans. Like it's crazy, guys. I know you've had to see it on social media. Justin Wright talking about it here. Someone should address this new beef we apparently have with Tennessee. They've been going ballistic on social media.
What's the story behind it, Blake? I haven't seen it, honestly.
That's the thing. Like, there is no story behind it. Like, they played A&M in the College World Series, and then they like became brothers or something. I don't know what happened. Schloss went to Texas. And now, like, all they do is just rag on Texas fans, and then Texas fans fire.
Maybe they know Vitello would have gone to Texas if CDC offered him the job, or maybe they're worried that Peyton Manning's going to be in the stands in Austin more than Knoxville in 25 and 26.
I'm not sure what it is, but I
think Odin Horns has it right. They don't like the fact that Texas calls themselves UT. When Tennessee also calls themselves UT. Here's the reality of it. When you go around the country and you say UT, people think of Texas. They don't think of Tennessee.
Correct. No.
So I'm not, and that doesn't mean that in the state of Tennessee they don't say that, but I think that hurts their feelings because their university was
good point, Bobby,
founded before the state of Texas. But it is what it is.
That's a good point, Bobby, because now Texas in the SEC, there's going to be more UT talk from Austin than Knoxville around the SEC. It's a great point. Yes, Riley Pettis on July 6th. That won't be Texas unless something changes.
And we believe that's USC at this point. Is that right, Jerry? The linebacker out of McKinney?
I mean, possibly. Ohio State right there. I mean, we'll see.
All right, guys, we have some super chats that we have to knock out. But before we do those, Bobby, can you tell folks out there about Austin Underground one last time?
Yeah, absolutely. Since 2004, Austin Underground has specialized in difficult underground commercial installations in and around the Austin area. The team's engineering background gives Austin Underground the ability to perform work other firms often consider just too risky. Rick Vavro and his team offer an end-to-end client experience, including seamless communication, budgeting, staffing, and top-notch trade partners. And most importantly, they produce solid quality work each and every time. That's Austin Underground. Also, if you're looking for road work, I want to mention their sister company, TexasRoad.com. Rick also runs that operation. He and his guys do also. So if you're looking for big projects that relate to roads, whether it's a subdivision or just a lot of work on your property, make sure you look up TexasRoad.com.
This is interesting from Odin Horns. on Dakorien because it is all Dakorien all the time right now. Honestly, SEC is better than Big 12, Big 10 for Dakorien. Yeah, I think there's, that's another part of this decision is, look, all his buddies are going to the SEC. The SEC is easier travel for his family. So I think all that stuff plays in. I do think the family set back and wants Dakorien to make his own decision. Again, if he weren't to go pick Texas today, he's literally blazing his own path. Colin Simmons goes to Texas. He was going to the SEC. Caden Durham, LSU. Keelan Russell flips from SMU to Alabama. So look, the three of the guys he's really close to. By the way, Jordan Zonta-Rebel, he grew up with. Families are really good friends at Texas. So a lot of people have gone SEC around him that he grew up with, that he's friends with. He'd be blazing his own trail for sure if he goes to Oregon. Then you have that travel from Oregon playing in the Big 12. How much is that? How taxing is that on his family versus if you're at Texas in the SEC?
All right, we got some some super chat. We have 4 super chats actually that we need to knock out. So we'll start here at the top from Juan Garza. Yet again, thank you, Juan, for all the super chats today. He says, I can see Oregon, if Dan Manning leaves, elevating Will Stein to head coach. Your thoughts?
Sure, absolutely. What if he stays? Where does Will Stein go then? Is that what you want to sign up for? Just telling you. I mean, there's a lot. That's what I'm getting at, where there's more uncertainty at Oregon than there is Texas, period. What if Dan Lanning stays and Will Stein gets offered, I don't know, the head job at Iowa? Is Dakorien Moore going to follow him to Iowa? Is Dakorien Moore going to wait and see who they hire at offensive coordinator if he's already signed on December 4th and the season doesn't end for them until December 15th and Stein doesn't move? I'm just telling you that if I'm Dakorien Moore and the people around him, that's a serious consideration because Dan Lanning is a defensive head coach.
And then our next one, guys, comes from Ashley Harrington. I believe that's Ashley's husband of previous super chats, if I remember correctly. But he says, can you explain which of the new safeties is more suited as a strong safety that will come down and play in the box more?
Boy, I think Jordan Johnson-Rebel fits that role. I watched him in person early last season. When I went to watch IMG, I think he's a run filler. He has some speed to get back deep, but I think he's a natural run filler. He sees it a little bit.
And he is a physical football player.
Yeah, he's not shy.
No.
He's not shy.
Oh, man, the Joe Natural. Happy 4th from Key West. Happy 4th.
Happy 4th to you, man.
I wish I was in Key West. All right. And then Slick Rick says, wait, we're losing Riley? What happened to the push?
Well, we'll see what Riley Pettichon announces on July 6th, but I think Texas made big push for Madden Faramo at all that official visit weekend. We'll see which way Madden Faramo goes. Will it be Notre Dame or Texas?
And then, guys, we started the show with Dakorien Moore, so it's only fitting that we end with Dakorien Moore, and that's what this last super chat is about here. Once again, from Osauce the Destroyer, thank you for your other super chat. He says, what role can we expect Dakorien Moore to fill in this offense?
Outside receiver, he's a natural, man.
Yeah.
If he picks Texas, obviously.
Yeah.
I just think he's a natural outside receiver. I asked Bob, Jerry. I asked Bob Shipley this the other day.
Yeah.
What is if you had your druthers and you had a dream team on the offense, what kind of offensive minded players would you want at wide receiver? Like, is there a prototype? And he was very interesting. He said that he would want 3 different types to kind of have different things that he could throw at a defense. One of them would be that outside guy like a Dakorien Moore or Xavier Worthy that can just take the top off of any defense. The other, he would want a big guy that could run and make the contested catch. Ryan Wingo is that type of guy. Okay, that's the other one. And then he would want a slot guy like a Wes Welker, like I don't even know who else you could even call in that category. that could make things happen underneath and yet still get a little vertical over the middle and make the tough plays. So those are the three slot types of receivers. Moore, in my opinion, fits as that outside guy that can take everything off the top.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes Dakorien Moore such a special prospect is I think he can play any of them and play them well. So, you know, I love the Ryan Wingo. But see, the outside receiver to me, and I love Colin Johnson, what he could do. But the outside receiver to me, the most impressive play Ryan Wingo made in the spring game wasn't a touchdown catch, wasn't a long catch. It was the first catch he had over on the home side, about the numbers, where he caught the ball, turned, made a couple of subtle moves, and picked up 6-7 more yards after the catch. My big receiver nowadays, or bigger receiver, has to be able to do that. They have to be able to make people miss in space. Yes, you want the vertical speed, and you have that with Wingo, but I think what's going to set him apart is I think he has enough wiggle for his size to maximize the short or intermediate catches. I want that component of it. And my other guys, I just want them to be fast. I just want speed. I mean, that's my main thing. Look, who can put the most pressure on a defense for 60 minutes? Who is gonna? We ought to ask Rod Babers this question next time there's a live stream. Get his thoughts as a cornerback as well. But who is gonna stress the guys you're playing against the most is who I want. And speed stresses over a 60-minute game. Speed stresses more than anything. Now, you have to be able to run routes. You have to be able to decelerate. You can't just accelerate. You have to be able to decelerate. I think that's also what makes Dakorien more special. His ability to be a 10-4 guy and then decelerate at the rate he does is pretty special stuff. But that's my thing. And look how Sark's changed wide receivers he recruits, Bobby. The USC guys, and I know some of it was Pete Carroll too. It was the times in football. But think about how it's changed. Those were bigger, taller guys. Bobby, you covered those guys coming out of high school. Bigger, taller guys that ran 4.6, 4.65. Those days are over. It's about how much speed can you put on the field at the same time to where those DBs don't get a rest, especially if you get into some tempo, and you can just continuously put pressure on a defense. And that forces the defense to try to bring numbers to disrupt because they know a secondary can't hold up over a 3 or 4 second period of time if you have speed all over the field.
You can't play the days of having a trio of 4-6 guys that were just really good football players is gone, to your point. But I will say there are guys that run 4.6 that play 4.4.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to happen. But by and large, I understand wanting one big receiver that can kind of make the difficult contested catch, one guy that can truly take the top off of any defense, and then the underneath guy. Then you have all three sections of the defense kind of tested, ideally. That's the thought process behind it. But we'll see. You don't want to get into a type. I will say this. I don't like just only liking one type. And then all of a sudden you have a bunch of really fast guys that can't block. And so your run game to the perimeter looks like crap. You know, put it that way. So you got to have a little bit of a mix.
I guess one more super chat that just came in here at the end regarding, you guessed it, Dakorien Moore. And Botex knows says, Jerry, when Moore selects Texas today, which recruits follow suit? And happy 4th of July. Hook 'em.
You know, I think it's interesting. Maybe Arch Manning was different because then the offensive line guys just fell into place right after. I think there's a lot of independent decisions nowadays in recruiting. I don't think if Dakorien Moore commits to Texas tonight, it's just going to create a following by other kids. I think everybody, Jason Washington pointed something out in our chat that we brought up earlier. These kids are more individualistic in recruiting nowadays than that. The text threads, they talk about things, they double check information, but they're more individualistic in their recruitments now than they've ever been. And maybe that's because of the NIL factor, right? I mean, the reality is, if Dakorien Moore were to commit to Texas tonight, there could be 3 or 4 other guys that want to come to Texas, but where does Texas value them in NIL versus where some other people value them in NIL? So I think it's the NIL component of this has slowed down that sort of thing to a certain extent.
Okay.
I think you have to weigh your options more judiciously now if you're a young man. I mean, you really do. It can't just be a, oh, I like this school, I'm going to go there, right? The NIL brings a new nuance to it that makes you be more judicious with your decisions. Because there's money at stake.
Yeah.
Real money.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by Rick Vavro and Austin Underground. I want to thank them along with Manscaped for sponsoring today's show. Obviously, it is the 4th of July. It's Independence Day. Dakorien Moore going to be announcing here in about 10 hours, guys, give or take just a little bit. But what's the plan later today? Anything people need to be aware of?
Jerry and I are going to break down Dakorien Moore's decision tree, what we think's going on right now. We'll do that a little bit later today. Bob Shipley and Rod Babers and CJ Vogel will also have an episode of the Winning Drive. They had a player draft, which I thought was pretty interesting. I listened to it. They've already recorded that. I listened to it last night. And then we'll be back for Dakorien Moore's decision at 8 o'clock tonight. Also, if you want to, please visit us at ontexasfootball.com. I mean, we've got a ton of news and notes going on right now. Just $39.95 for 1 year. OTF OG. Use that and then apply the code OTF OG, and you get $20 off an annual subscription to ontexasfootball.com. That's where you can get news and notes from myself, Jerry Hamilton, you, Blake, as well as CJ Vogel and more.
And if you haven't already, we would love for you to hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell so you're notified anytime that we post a video or go live. And that way you don't miss anything, including up-to-date news on Dakorien Moore's decision later today, in case you didn't know that was happening. So everybody out there, have a great 4th of July, a safe happy 4th of July, and we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow morning. As Bobby and Jerry said, they got you covered the rest of the day. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Happy 4th. Enjoy some